we're gonna jump to my preseason number one. Justin Edwards, 6'8", 190-pound, small forward, wing, 3-and-D wing, whatever you want to classify him as. Number three on ESPN's recruiting board, headed to Kentucky. Another guy at Hoop Summit who is incredibly impressive, who just kind of does all the little things on the court. When we were at Hoop Summit, Edwards was number one in the country in the recruiting, and we were all just like, God, I wish he didn't have that number next to his name, because it's just going to bring on expectations that probably don't necessarily fit what type of player he is. But God, is he nice?
My preseason number one right now. We'll see if that holds until our first big board drops at NoCeilingsNBA.com. But I love him. I absolutely love the tools, love the height, love the shot, love the upside. I watched all those Global Jam games, seeing him with the Kentucky system, or if you wanted to say with that roster, he looks to be the guy. I've liked what I've seen when he's bringing the ball up, a grab and go guy. I've liked the shot. I've liked the off ball stuff. Checks a lot of boxes. Seeing him in Portland, I was like, it was very annoying when we had there's the number one guy. And I was like, I hate that. And I was just like, he looks like the guy I'd be most excited about developing into something. And it is the size. It is the length, the versatility. I think there's just an all-around game that's going to get unlocked, and smooth looking shot from outside. But there is a level with his game defensively that scares the crap out of me, because if he figures out how to make it consistent all the time, it's a really scary player. And I saw that in Portland on a couple possessions. I was like, oh my gosh, where it was just everything looked right on cue, perfect. Now, the problem is it's not always perfect. So if he can get more consistent, I'm really pumped about Justin Edwards. And I like that he's going to Kentucky. I like that roster's going to be stacked. I think there's going to be a little bit more versatility than people think. I think some people think he's just a shooter, or he's like, floor spacer. And I was like, no, there's a lot of all-around game waiting to be. The ingredients are together. They're just brewing in the pot. So what do you think, Metcalf? What else you got? Oh, you're muted. Classic. Take a lap. Literally a lap.
All right, I'll be right back.
Unbelievable. That's why it's an off season. Hey, goodness. You know what? We should make a rule.
We'll start.
That's a fine jar.
Fine bucket or something, or
a fine jar. $5 bucket or $5. And then however big
starting
that jar gets,
after this episode.
Yeah, after however big that gets, we have to put it on red or black for Summer League. There you go. Perfect.
All right. What I was saying to an audience of just me was that I absolutely love that you brought up Justin Edwards' off-ball defense, because that is immediately what stood out to me every time I watched him play. And he just has this ability to basically defend the weak side by himself, with his rotations, his positioning, his timing, his length, his anticipation. All of it is so impressive. It really, these are two really big names I'm going to throw out, but it really reminded me of how Tyrese Halliburton played the weak side at Iowa State and how Devin Vassell played the weak side at Florida State. It was that type of control, where it's like, it's 3-on-1 over here on this side.
Yeah,
that's fine, because I'm going to delay it long enough where even if that skip pass gets made, I'm going to tag, I'm going to recover, I'm going to close out under control. My fundamentals, my timing, everything's going to be on point, where either I get a strong contestant on anyone who shoots, or I'm going to delay it long enough where the rest of my team can recover, or I'm going to bait the ball handler into a sloppy pass and I'm taking it the other way.
Yeah, and it's not just the Global Jam stuff that impressed me. It's like I've watched everything. Because like putting someone preseason number one on my board, I'm like, you got to convince me. And I've just, everything I've watched, I'm like, I'm in. I'm buying the upside. I'm buying the tools. The defense really gets me pumped. The on-ball stuff is what I'm saying just needs to get more consistent.
Agreed. I think that's a strength stuff. I think it's a lot of it's a strength thing too.
Yes. And I think it's just some footwork sometimes where he's a little over anxious with his feet.
I
ironed out.
I have in my notes that he's a little too eager to like flip his hips to turn and
Mhm.
chase instead of sliding with the guy. It's like, bro, you got the length and the footwork. I've seen you implement this footwork in other areas of of your game. Just slide with them. Like you don't have to stay in front of them. You just have to keep them out of the lane. And I do think that in time that's gonna come. But I had very similar things where it's like, okay, still really skinny. He's gonna have to get stronger, and he flips his hips a little too quickly. But there are some really scary defensive tools there.
And I wish I had the highlight of the play, in Portland. I know we were all watching it, but it was during a scrimmage, and he literally slid his feet, changed direction.
Yes.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, if that's there," and then you pair in that he's 6'8", I'm like, if that's there and that comes around all the time, we're talking about a two-way demon. Um, I just I think that's a guy that 6'8" shooter with defensive upside. I'm not just saying 3 and D, but like bare minimum, those are really exciting tools to get excited about. And then I think there's versatility that's going to be showcased at Kentucky all year that I just get pumped about. So that's why he's number one on my board right now, because I would feel the most excited if you got that pick about being like, let's take a 6'8" wing with defensive nastiness and an outside shot. Everything else we'll figure it out.
Yeah, and I know there are probably plenty of people right now who are kind of rolling their eyes at the idea of really you have a 3 and D wing at number
Oh,
one,
I'm
and
not even just, yeah, I'm just saying bare minimum.
right, my retort to that is I think that's his worst case scenario,
Yes.
and
His floor.
that is still a really good player. I also think that he's shown a lot of kind of on ball creation shiftiness. I think there's a lot. I think he's an awesome defender right now, and I think he has so much more to grow into. I there are even passing flashes with him where it's like, oh, buddy, like that was gorgeous. Like more
Yes.
of that, please, please give me more of that. And I hope at Kentucky we get to see more of that because he's not this explosive space creator where he's, breaking guys down consistently off the dribble, but he has such a high level of awareness on both ends of the floor where it's like, oh, there is so much left to your game that you've barely touched on.
I think that's, you put that perfectly when it's saying like that's his floor. And his floor might be a really dang good 3 and D guy, but the playmaking has really got me excited because I do think that he's a guy you could put the ball in his hands, run the offense through him, and let him be a playmaker. I think there is some wiggle to his game too. I think there's just a great assortment of tools that are going to get a lot of reps, and we're going to look up a couple months into the season and be like, woo, Justin Edwards is starting to roll. And it would not shock me um, if he gets to a point where he's starting to separate himself. And that's not me dogging, the Ignite guys that I know everyone's excited about, some of the other prospects. I just think Edwards has that potential
Yeah.
to sort of, like, NBA teams get so pumped about what he has going for him, which is 6'8", lengthy wing that can shoot it,
Shoots the shit out of the
shoots the
ball.
crap out of it, and has defense and athleticism. There's some playmaking. There's a lot of stuff going for him to kind of, if all of a sudden he's putting up good percentages, being efficient, shooting the crap out of it, he could start cementing it, like separating
Hmm.
himself. And it's like I said, I think the Ignite guys are really intriguing prospects. I think they're going to be in for a little bit of a wake up call when it comes to physicality because they're going to be bigger guys that are going to be skinny, young, and playing against grown ass men. And it's not me. I promise you, I like those guys a lot. I'm just saying, I think Edwards has a really good path to sort of kind of be the guy. I think the other guys have a lot more challenges, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I have a lot of questions with those Ignite guys, and I just kind of have fewer with Edwards right now. I'm sure plenty will pop up as we go throughout the season. But I currently the biggest one that I have with him, it's all kind of physical tool based, and most of the time those are kind of the hardest ones or some of the hardest to correct where I really worry about his strength right now and how much of a hindrance that's going to be for him on both ends of the floor. I'm kind of worried that he's not a really explosive guy, so when he gets downhill he's not exploding through contact or finishing through contact or getting over defenders. Do you have any obviously, I know he's a teenager, I expect him to get stronger, but do you think he has the frame to add really healthy weight to him? Do you have any concerns about the athletic tools, or are you just like, he's a skinny teenager and everyone at one point has been, and he's going to figure it out?
I mean, he's definitely going to have to put on weight. Like I think Kentucky's site had him listed at 6'8", 190 maybe,
Yep.
and we always
Yep.
love team sites. So you definitely would like to see him get over 200. Hopefully by the draft he's probably flirting around 205, which would be putting on a lot of weight.
A lot of
But
weight. Yeah.
if he could get to 198, and then you know maybe after keep climbing, keep climbing the board, and it's just a tough challenge, but you got to just spend some time in there. I don't get over like his athleticism pops. He's got the size. I don't get overly worried about like early on guys like, oh, you're struggling to finish around the rim, and it's like, yeah, I understand the opening month of the season. You're adjusting. Um, I I just am buying everything, and we saw this with Brandon Miller last year. Everyone was
Hmm.
freaking out about the finishing around the rim early on, and
Shame
he
things
was
didn't
a
work out for him.
thin, yeah, it worked out fine. Thin body guy that was tall, lengthy, had the versatility. He figured it out. He made adjustments. Like let's give them some time to get the speed of the game and figure out where they can have some success. I think Edwards is going to be fine. I'm not overly worried about the athleticism. Like we always expect these guys to just come out and be like Vince Carter, and it's like those don't grow on trees. So I'm not too worried. What about you? Are you overly concerned, or is it just that's the area of his game? You're like, I need to see that kind
That
of.
that that's the big one, and it's I don't expect these guys to be NBA level finishers in high school, especially going through contact. It's really hard. It takes time to learn that stuff. The bigger and with Edwards specifically, he's really good with extension finishes. So he's really good at using his length to kind of finish around guys instead of over them. We have some clips, so we'll go through that. So I'm not totally worried about it because I think he has really good touch too. It's just it seems like a common trend, whereas like every time he met someone at the rim, they were always way up higher than him, and it always kind of felt like he was being swallowed up by the defender. So whether that's more craft, whether it's a little more patience, and instead he's settling for a little more or for a few more floaters instead, I don't know. It's just something that I'm going to have to kind of keep an eye on throughout the season.
Yeah, right there with you. I think it's something I'll monitor for sure. I understand what you're saying. Like there's some times where he can get met at the rim, but I think that's also like comparing him to Jacoby. Jacoby has that length and also does a good job of like shielding off his body to kind of, if he's going off the right dribble, like driving right, Jacoby does a good job of like almost using his shoulder and then like extending that arm to almost buy you a couple inches.
Yeah, well, like in that clip that we watched, I mean, he went into the shot blocker and took away his shot blocking ability.
Yeah,
He took that away from him, and I just haven't really seen that from Edwards.
100%. And that's where I was trying to go is like maybe that's the next area of game that you're working on with Justin at Kentucky. You're like, hey, now you need to figure out how to create your advantage off the attack when it comes to like if you're attacking the basket and you got a shot blocker, you want to go into him, make his life difficult when it comes to angles on the rim, use the rim to protect your shot, like all that stuff. And maybe that's the next area of his game he's got to iron out.
All right, let's jump into some clips here. We're gonna start with the defense.
We got
Um,
to start with the defense.
so
Everybody knows this.
he's the low man here. I just love the timing, the rotations, going back and forth, jumps the passing lane. So he's the low man. They run a high pick and roll, and he's immediately there tagging the roller, takes that away, switches off, and then right back there once his teammate has to help back.
This is why I always say like being active and constantly moving away from the ball is so important because you can't let your feet fall asleep and become cinder blocks. And I know like that sounds insane, but like an inactive defender who is going through the motions and kind of just sitting and watching and becoming a spectator probably isn't making that steal. But because Edwards is constantly moving, He's stopping that look. Okay, I'm there. I helped you out. And obviously, there's no way he's not talking without this whole rep.
Yep.
But just constantly moving, being a quarterback, being a safety, whatever you want to say, just really intelligent, like understanding where the next rotation is supposed to happen.
Yeah, and just what on the second drive here, where so he tags, he recovers, he switches off, and then right here, like once that second drive comes, I love how he positions himself where he's in a place where he's taking away that baseline skip pass to the opposite corner where his guy was. He knows where his guy is, and he's in a position to take that away. But he's also here with the big man on the block and able to eventually jump that pass as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I was gonna say I almost wish his man would have stayed in the corner, made that passing angle even more difficult. But um, I just have seen him do this all the time on film, where it's just like
Yeah.
I love the off ball stuff, and that's where I'm like, if the on ball consistency comes around with it, it's a terrifying prospect. It's just awesome.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into some of the offensive stuff. I really wanted to focus on the scoring and just how he kind of creates for himself by attacking closeouts with his off-ball movement. It's whoop, wrong button. It's real simple. So just kind of little brush screen creates the defensive rotation, attacks that high foot, and then just extension finish around the help defender.
I think it. I think it was Rasheed Wallace. Shout out Rasheed. Had a great viral video that was just like, basketball's, you got to be simple. You want to be as simple as possible to get from this point to the basket. And maybe that is why I like Edwards so much, is because there's a lot of times where it's just simple. Like there's a lot of
Hmm.
times where he's just like one move, see my window, get it done.
Hmm.
Um,
But
it look
there are just a lot of little things that go into this too that make it look really simple.
and that yes, that's exactly what I'm getting at. Is like the simple things on tape sometimes are much more elaborate than you think,
Mhm.
but it also like that's what makes it so impressive to me is when I can tell like the prep, like the great recognition right there to tell where the body movement is going, like where it's carrying the defender. The ability to tack the weak foot right there, the high foot to where it's like
Mhm.
if I get past them, it's daylight. And then just knowing that this help defender is coming over and using that extra little side step, if you want to put it, or just adjusting your body to finish. Like it's very mature stuff that looks.
It
Some
it
people would
it
be like, "Oh, it
it's
looks like a drive and a layup." And it's like, no, there's a lot of really
it's
good
pro shit.
reacting. Yes, yes.
Yeah, so I just right because I believe that's on Kwame Evans too, who's a hell of a defender.
He's
But
going to Oregon.
it all starts from his threat as a shooter, where and he's deep here, and Kwame Evans still has to close out with that high hand, which brings him up in the stance, which creates that high foot for Edwards to attack, and now Evans can't even recover. Edwards takes off before the defender can get there, adjusts his body, finishes around him. Again, kind of similar thing.
Ugh.
DHO, just a nice little extension scoop finish, similar to what we saw with Jacoby, where it's just a little hesitation, creates that lane to blow past the drop defender.
Hesitation and touch.
Yeah,
All
that's a
it
nice little
takes with a
double
lot of
drag.
these guys is just the slowest, like just get your guy to move and react and you can get by them, but you just have to get them to bite a little bit to get their feet a little bit slower. Um,
Especially when you got, I believe that's Aaron Bradshaw, who moves pretty well. But when
yeah,
when you get a 7-footer in the middle of the floor and you hit him with that a little hesitation move, get him to plant his feet just for that split second, that for a wing or a guard, that's 2 extra steps for them. And then he has the length and the touch to finish with that extended left hand at the rim and avoid the shot blocker.
yeah, the touch is very impressive there. I know he's left-handed, but that's still not an easy shot that looks very easy.
Yeah, and then again, just another DHO. It's it all feels really simple, but it's all really calculated and just a great ability to counter his defender's movement. And it all so much of his on-ball kind of scoring and on-ball creation stems from how adept and creative he is moving without the ball.
I mean, ref, can I get an and one? Come on.
So yeah, and just a little DHO get drags his defender into the screen, creates that driving lane, strong through the the weak off ball reach attempt, finishes through contact.
I think the thing that stands out with Justin for me personally is um you can see when he's kind of going the same speeds at time when he wants to get somewhere and he understands he's got daylight to attack, he gets places fast. Like he covers a lot of ground, and
Mhm.
I think it's at that size. I just like the change of gears. It's the burst for me that gets me really pumped with him off the dribble. Like he can really set himself up to turn on to hit the turbo button and get places.
Yeah,
Um,
it's kind of like a gazelle where it's just these long strides going through traffic. It's very smooth and just a lot quicker than you would think it would be.
yeah.
All right.
Shout out you with the animal drop. I mean, come on, Discovery Channel sponsor.
All right. Last one here is we talked about some of the playmaking flashes. I love this. We get a little on ball shiftiness, gets his defender in
Yeah,
the air, and gets the help defender, and just beautiful counter.
but there's stuff like this all the time that maybe not all the time. Is what I'm saying is just like there's stuff that he's showcasing like this where I'm like, if this is coming around more often, now we're not only just getting a 3-and-D guy, we're getting a potential feed offensively to create for others. Um, and I've already seen it with some of those global jam games. And obviously, like, guys, calm down. I'm not putting all of my weight on the global jam. It's just like I'm taking as much new stuff as I can see because I know the competition's not like, March Madness stuff. But I just think this is the part of his game
Hmm.
that he's probably realizing, like, I have more here to unlock and lean on. And if you can balance the desire to be a scorer with this and figure out a way to let one of those make life easier on the other part, then you're really becoming a potential stud, potential star.
Yeah, and I kind of have some concerns about the lack of playmaking at Kentucky next year, and I think he could be a really interesting outlet to be one of those primary playmakers and creators for everyone on the team, given how kind of crafty he is, given how well he sees the floor, given how well he creates defensive imbalances with his off-ball movement. I think there's a lot of potential for Kentucky to do some really creative stuff with him as a passer.
I think they're going to put the ball in his hands. I know everyone might think that's crazy, but I think they're going to be like we're running a lot of sets with Justin running the show. I think they're going to be also a defensive or a transition team where it's like Justin's running the break with DJ Dillingham on the sides or whatever you want to put it that way. I've just seen him. He's showcased some grab and go stuff where I'm like, if I was
Yeah.
Calipari seeing that, I'd be like, yes, like the confidence is surging when he has the whole floor to survey and he can dish out and make reads. And I'm like you. I think they're going to put the ball in his hands. Obviously, he can shoot it, but I think there's going to be some legit stuff in transition. Like, oof. I mean, but you see that already with some of those exhibition games. It's like he has a great ability to be like, let me get here and adjust. Um,
Yeah, and
and
just right in transition, little in and out dribble, see a DJ, steps around defender, gets Aaron Bradshaw to come over, gets him to leave his feet. Nice chase down block by the fourth defender there. But, this is in transition. He's created a layup attempt for his teammate after beating four defenders.
I think a lot of people would be like, why didn't he kick this ball out to the left? And it's like, because that was a steal. That man was coming back. And
Yeah, that's exactly where DJ Wagner was collapsing to.
yeah,
I don't think corner shooter gets a good shot off there if he
no,
gets
because
the ball at all.
if you're the ball handler, like this is a good thing on tape. Like your ball handler, you beat this guy, you got to be like, well, he's probably coming right back there.
Yep.
So I love how Justin works to get that other weak side defender to close in on him and throws that pass and dunk the damn ball. I'm sorry. Like finish,
Get up,
like
big
finish
fella.
with some anger, big fella. Come on, don't go up weak. Like I love those plays, but if I was literally on the couch at 5 a.m. and I would be like, dunk that shit. Like, come on.
What are you doing?
Just finish it, but there's just stuff like that where I think there's a bigger picture with Justin's game that is just starting to get unlocked. And that's why I'm going to have him number one.